Hello again. Are you ready for chapter 3? It's called A Caucus Race and a Long Tail. They were indeed a very odd-looking party that assembled on the bank. The birds with draggled feathers, the animals with their fur clinging close to them, and all dripping wet, cross and uncomfortable. The first question, of course, how to get dry again. They had a consultation about this, and after a few minutes it seemed quite natural to Alice to find herself talking familiarly with them, as if she'd known them all her life. Indeed, she had quite a long argument with the lorry, who at last turned sulky and would only say, "I'm older than you and must know better." And this Alice would not allow, without knowing how old it was, and as the lorry positively refused to tell its age, there was no more to be said. At last the mouse, who seemed to be a person of some authority among them, called out, "Sit down, all of you. Listen to me. I'll soon make you dry enough." They all sat down at once in a large ring with the mouse in the middle. Alice kept her eyes anxiously fixed on it, for she felt that she would catch a bad cold if she did not get dry very soon. "Ahem," said the mouse with the most important air. "Are you ready? This is the driest thing I know. Silence all round, if you please." William the Conqueror, whose cause was favoured by the Pope, was soon submitted to by the English, who wanted leaders and had been of late much accustomed to usurpation and conquest. Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria. "Ugh," said the lorry with a shiver. "I beg your pardon," said the mouse. "Did you speak?" "Not I," said the lorry. "I thought you did. I proceed. Edwin and Morcar, the Earls of Mercia and Northumbria, declared for him, and even Stigand, the patriotic Bishop of Canterbury, found it advisable." "Found what?" said the duck. "Found it," said the mouse rather crossly. "Of course you know what it means." "I know what it means well enough when I find a thing," said the duck. "It's generally a frog or a worm. The question is, what did the Archbishop find?" The mouse did not notice this question, but hurriedly went on. "Found it advisable to go to Edgar Atheling to meet William and offer him the crown. William's conduct at first was moderate, but the insolence of his Normans—" "How are you getting on, my dear?" the mouse continued, turning to Alice as it spoke. "As wet as ever. It doesn't seem to dry me at all," said Alice sadly. "In that case," said the dodo solemnly, rising to its feet, "I suggest we stop the meeting and immediately do something more energetic." "Speak English," said the eaglet. "I don't know the meaning of half those long words, and what's more, I don't believe you do either." And the eaglet bent down its head to hide a smile. Some of the other birds laughed too. "What I was going to say," said the dodo in an offended tone, "was that the best thing to get us dry would be a caucus race." "What is a caucus race?" said Alice. Not that she much wanted to know, but the dodo had paused, as if it thought that somebody ought to speak, and no one else seemed to want to say anything. "Why," said the dodo, "the best way to explain it is to do it." First, it marked out the racecourse in a sort of circle, and then all the party were placed along the course here and there. There was no ready, steady, go, but they all began running when they liked and stopped when they liked, so that it was not easy to know when the race was over. However, when they'd been running half an hour or so and were quite dry again, the dodo called out, "Race is over!" And they all crowded around, panting and asking, "But who's won?" This question the dodo could not answer without a great deal of thought, and it stood for a long time with one finger pressed to its forehead, while the rest waited in silence. At last the dodo said, "Everybody has won, and everybody must have prizes. But who will give the prizes. Why, she, of course, said the Dodo, pointing to Alice with one finger, and everyone crowded around her, shouting, prizes, prizes. Alice had no idea what to do, and in despair she put her hand in her pocket and pulled out a box of licorice. Luckily, the salt water hadn't got into them, and handed them round as prizes. There was exactly one each for everyone. But she must have a prize herself, you know, said the Mouse. Of course, the Dodo said seriously. What else have you got in your pocket? And Alice said sadly, only a thimble. Hand it over here, said the Dodo. Then they all crowded around her once more while the Dodo solemnly presented the thimble, saying, we beg your acceptance of this elegant thimble. And when it had finished this short speech, they all cheered. Alice thought the whole thing very absurd, but they all looked so serious she didn't dare laugh. And as she could not think of anything to say, she simply bowed and took the thimble, looking as solemn as she could. The next thing was to eat the comfits. This caused some noise and confusion, as the large bird complained that it couldn't taste the one it had been given, and the small birds choked and had to be patted on the back. However, it was over at last, and they sat down again in a ring and begged the Mouse to tell them some more. You promised you'd tell me your history, said Alice, and why it is you hate C and D. Half afraid the Mouse will be offended again. Mine is a long and sad tale, said the Mouse, turning to Alice and sighing. It is a long tale, certainly, said Alice, looking at Mouse's tail. But why do you call it sad? And she kept on puzzling about it while the Mouse was speaking, so that her idea of the tale was something like this. Fury said to a mouse that he met in the house, let us both go to law. I will prosecute you. Come, take no denial. We must have the trial, for really this morning I've nothing to do. Said the Mouse to the cur, such a trial, dear sir, with no jury or judge would be wasting our breath. I'll be the judge, I'll be the jury, said the cunning old Fury. I'll try the whole cause and condemn you to death. You're not listening, said the Mouse to Alice. What are you thinking of? I beg your pardon, said Alice very humbly. You had got to the fifth bend, I think. I had not, cried the Mouse sharply and angrily. And not, said Alice, always ready to make herself useful. Oh, do let me help you undo it. I shall do nothing of the sort, said the Mouse, getting up and walking away. You insult me by talking such nonsense. I didn't mean it, pleaded poor Alice, but you're so easily offended, you know. The Mouse only growled in reply. Please come back and finish your story, Alice called after it, and the others all joined in. Yes, please do. But the Mouse only shook its head impatiently and walked a little quicker. What a pity it wouldn't stay, sighed the lorry as soon as it was out of sight. And an old crab took the opportunity of saying to her daughter, Ah, my dear, let this be a lesson to you, never to lose your temper. Hold your tongue, Ma, said the young crab a little snappishly. You're enough to try the patience of an oyster. I wish I had our Dinah here. I know I do, said Alice. She'd soon fetch it back. And who is Dinah? Might I venture to ask the question, asked the lorry. Alice replied eagerly, for she was always ready to talk about her pet. Dinah's our cat, and she's such a capital one for catching mice you can't think, and I wish you could see her after the birds. Why, she'll eat a little bird as soon as look at it. This speech caused a remarkable sensation among the party. Some of the birds hurried off at once. One old magpie began wrapping itself up very carefully, remarking, "I really must be getting home. The night air doesn't suit my throat." And a canary called out in a trembling voice to its children, "Come away, my dears. It's high time you were all in bed." They all moved off, and Alice was soon left alone. Wish I hadn't mentioned Dinah. Nobody seems to like her down here. I know she's the best cat in the world. Oh, my dear Dinah, I wonder if I shall ever see you any more. And here poor Alice began to cry again, for she felt very lonely. And in a little while, however, she heard again the little pattering of footsteps in the distance, and she looked up eagerly, half hoping that the mouse had changed its mind and was coming back to finish its story. And that is the end of chapter 3. And I'd like to say a particular hello to Eloise, whose mummy tells me has been listening to this book chapter by chapter very eagerly. And tomorrow I'll read you chapter 4.